Homeless girl finds officer and 2 K9 south. Tied under 140 degrees Fahrenheit sun. What she did shocked the police force. The sun was scorching hot enough to melt asphalt, hot enough to burn skin in seconds. The temperature had hit a deadly 140 degrees Fahrenheit on that abandoned stretch of road. Not a single car passed. Not a single bird dared cross the sky. It was the kind of deadly day when even standing outside felt impossible. Yet 8-year-old Lily, a homeless girl with blistered feet and an empty stomach, kept walking because survival didn't give her a choice. A barefoot homeless girl carrying a torn backpack and a half-empty water bottle spotted something strange far in the distance. At first, she thought it was just a breeze shimmering in the heat. But as she got closer, her heart froze. A police officer was tied to a wooden pole in the middle of the road, his uniform drenched in sweat, his head slumped forward. And beside him lay 2 motionless K9 officers, breathing faintly. Their vests marked K9, UNIT. All 3 looked like they were moments away from death. Lily dropped her bag and ran. No one else was around. No adults. No help. No shade. No cars. No help. Just a dying officer, 2 loyal dogs, and an 8-year-old girl who refused to walk away. What she did next would shock the entire police force and save 3 lives. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The highway shimmered like liquid glass under the brutal 140 degrees Fahrenheit sun. Heat waves danced above the asphalt, rising in thick, suffocating currents that made the air burn with every breath. 8-year-old Lily trudged barefoot along the shoulder, her little backpack bouncing against her spine. She wasn't walking anywhere in particular, she never did. Being homeless meant every road was home and every day was survival. She held an old plastic water bottle, the last few warm drops sloshing weakly inside. She saved them for emergencies. And today felt like one of the worst yet. As she walked, something unusual caught her eye far ahead, something dark, slumped, and still. At first, Lily thought it was just debris or maybe a broken sign. But the closer she came, the more her chest tightened. Her pace quickened. Sweat dripped into her eyes. The sun scorched the back of her neck like a branding iron. Then she saw them. A man, no, a police officer, was tied upright to a wooden utility pole in the center of the road. Coarse rope dug into his chest and arms, binding him so tightly that angry red marks crossed his skin. His head hung forward, blood dried across his temple. His uniform was soaked with sweat. And at his feet lay 2 German Shepherd K9 south. Their bodies sprawled motionless on the blistering pavement. Lily stumbled in shock, nearly dropping her bottle. She called out, her small voice cracking in the heat. No response. Not a twitch. Not a breath she could see. Panic rushed through her tiny frame. She ran to the nearest dog, dropping to her knees. The pavement scorched her skin, but she didn't care. She placed her hand on the dog's chest, faint movement. Barely alive. She crawled to the second K9, same thing. Weak, dying, overheated. Tears welled in her eyes. Finally, she stood before the officer. His lips were cracked, his breathing shallow. "Mister, can you hear me?" she whispered, shaking his arm gently. Nothing. Lily's heart pounded. There was no one else around. No cars, no buildings. Just endless road and heat that could kill in minutes. She pulled out her bottle, uncapped it with trembling fingers, and lifted it to the officer's lips. "You're not gonna die," she whispered fiercely, not if she could stop it. Long before, Officer Grant found himself tied to a pole under a murderous sun. He was known throughout the county as the kind of officer people trusted instantly. Quiet, steady, and fiercely loyal, Grant had built a reputation not just for bravery, but for compassion. And beside him always were his partners, Rex and Bolt, two of the most skilled K9 South the department had ever trained. Rex was the older one, disciplined and sharp, with a bark that could stop a grown man in his tracks. Bolt was younger, faster, and known for his uncanny ability to detect danger seconds before anyone else. Together, the three were unstoppable. Kids gathered around them at community events, petting the dogs while Grant handed out stickers and warm smiles. Elderly residents thanked him for checking their homes at night. Even criminals often said the same thing when caught. They were terrified of Rex's stare. But beneath the rough exterior, Rex adored belly rubs and Bolt loved chasing tennis balls more than anything. Grant treated them like his children, no difference. No hesitation, no question. Just that morning, before everything went wrong, Grant had loaded the dogs into the patrol SUV for what was supposed to be a routine day. A missing person search in the outer woods. Rex had barked excitedly, Bolt wagging so hard he thumped the back seat. Grant laughed, scratching behind their ears. "All right, boys, let's go save someone." And they had. The trio located the missing hiker in under 20 minutes. A textbook rescue. The kind the department loved to showcase. Grant called it in, praised Rex and Bolt with treats and affection, then headed back toward the station. It was supposed to be a simple drive home, but someone else had been waiting. Someone who had been following Grant for weeks. Someone who hated the officer for arresting him 2 months earlier on charges that would put him behind bars for years. Someone who vowed revenge not through a gun or a knife, but through pain, humiliation, and slow suffering. The ambush came without warning. A truck blocked the road. A flashbang exploded against the windshield. Grant reached for the radio, but he never made it. Rex and Bolt lunged to protect him, but multiple attackers overpowered them. Rope, heat, cruel laughter, then darkness. Back in the present. None of that mattered to Lily. All she saw was a man and 2 dogs dying alone on a silent road. She was the only person who could save them. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared up at the unconscious officer. His lips were dry and cracked, his breath slow and uneven. Heat shimmered around him like a deadly aura, baking his skin and darkening the rope burns across his arms. She'd seen suffering before, hunger, exhaustion, fear, but never anything like this. Never a man and 2 dogs dying in the open where no one could hear them scream. She uncapped her battered water bottle with trembling fingers. There were only a few sips left, barely enough for herself, but she didn't hesitate. She pressed it gently to the officer's lips. "Please drink." "Please," she whispered. A single drop slid into his mouth, and she watched anxiously as his throat twitched, swallowing on instinct. It wasn't much, but it was life. Next, she knelt beside the K9 South again. Their fur was scorching hot, their tongues dry and pale. She tilted the bottle, letting a thin ribbon of water touch their mouths. Rex gave a faint lick. Bolt's ear twitched at the sensation. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Lily looked down at her empty bottle, her pulse quickening. "I'll find more," she murmured. "I promise I'll find more." But she couldn't leave them, not with the road empty, not with danger possibly returning. She scanned the area desperately for shade, but the entire stretch was exposed, sun beating down mercilessly. She shrugged off her backpack, a faded canvas bag with broken straps, and placed it over Bolt's head to shield his eyes. Then she took off her worn t-shirt, leaving only a thin tank top beneath, and draped the shirt over Rex's face. With trembling hands, she positioned herself beside the officer, using her small shadow to block whatever sunlight she could. Her feet burned against the asphalt, but she didn't move. Minutes passed like hours. The officer's breathing softened. One of the dogs let out a weak whine. The sun grew hotter, so hot that the air tasted metallic and sharp, but Lily stayed. She wiped sweat from the officer's forehead. She whispered to the dogs. She pressed her hands to the ropes, trying to loosen them. only to hiss in pain as the rough fibers scraped her skin raw. But she didn't stop, because at 8 years old, Lily understood something many adults didn't. When someone is dying, you don't look away. You try. You fight. You save whoever you can, even if you're just a little girl with nothing but courage. The sun climbed higher, turning the already blistering road into a furnace. Heat waves rose in thick currents, distorting everything around Lily like a nightmare mirage. Her bare feet were burning now. Each step she shifted felt like standing on hot coals. She kept glancing at the officer and the K9 South, fear clawing at her chest. Their breathing had slowed even more. Rex's sides barely moved, and Bolt's tongue hung lifelessly from his mouth. Officer Grant's head drooped forward, sweat dripping from his chin and sizzling the moment it hit the pavement. Lily had never seen a human being look so close to death. She moved closer, pressing her small hand to the officer's cheek. It was scorching. Too hot. She jerked back in alarm. "Mister, please wake up," she whispered, voice trembling. No response. She tried tugging at the thick rope around his chest, pulling with all her strength, but the knot was too tight, too cruelly tied. It scraped her palms open, blood mixing with sweat, but she didn't stop. She gritted her teeth and pulled again, tears streaking down her dirt-covered face. The heat pressed harder. Her vision blurred. The world around her shimmered like melting glass. A dizzy wave swept over her, forcing her to kneel beside Bolt. She placed both hands on his face. "Don't give up," she murmured. "Please don't." Bolt's eyelid twitched. Barely. It was enough to keep her fighting. But the sun? The sun was winning. Lily felt her skin burning. Her shoulders stung. Every breath scorched her lungs. She looked around desperately. No shade, no shelter, no sign of water anywhere. Her throat was dry and painful, but she forced herself to swallow. Her empty bottle lay beside her, worthless now. A tear dripped down her cheek and landed on Rex's snout. The dog let out a faint, broken whine. "This is bad," she whispered. "This is really, really bad." Officer Grant suddenly twitched his body, convulsed violently, forcing Lily backward in shock. His muscles tightened beneath the rope. His breath turned ragged and sharp. Heat stroke. Severe. Lily panicked. "No, no, no, don't die," she cried, shaking his arm. His eyes fluttered open, for a split second glazed, unfocused. But he saw her. He saw a little girl fighting for him with everything she had. And then his head slumped again. Lily's whole body shook. She pressed her forehead to his arm, sobbing. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. But the deserted road gave no answer, only the pounding sun. And the ticking clock counting down 3 lives. Still, Lily stood. She wasn't giving up. Not now, not when she was all they had left. Lily wiped her tear-streaked face and forced herself to focus. Crying wouldn't save them. She needed something sharp, anything that could cut the rope. Her eyes scanned the scorching ground desperately until she spotted it, a shard of broken glass glinting near the edge of the road. She winced as she crawled toward it, the asphalt burning her knees and palms, but she didn't stop. She grabbed the glass carefully, ignoring the sting as its jagged edge sliced her fingertip. With trembling determination, she pressed the shard to the rope binding Officer Grant. At first, it barely scratched. The rope was thick, sun-hardened, and cruelly knotted. Lily adjusted her grip and saw it again, sweating, shaking, bleeding. Every motion scraped her little hands raw, but slowly, the fibers began to fray. "Come on, please," she whispered, pushing herself harder despite the blistering heat. A loud snap echoed in the air. The rope around Grant's chest loosened, and his body sagged forward. Lily gasped in relief and reached to support him, her tiny arms barely keeping him upright. "Sir, wake up. Please," she urged. His eyelids fluttered, his breath shallow. Then, for the first time, he whispered so faintly she almost didn't hear it. "Run." Lily froze. "What?" Grant's head lifted weakly. His cracked lips trembled as he forced out one more word. "Run." Before she could process his warning, a sound rumbled in the distance. An engine. Loud. Fast. Getting closer. Lily whipped her head toward the road's curve. A black pickup truck approached, dust curling behind its tires. It wasn't slowing down. Her heart dropped. They were coming back. She grabbed the fallen rope, instinctively pulling it to shield the dogs, but her hands shook violently. Bolt let out a faint growl despite his weakness. Rex lifted his head an inch. Sensing danger, the truck screeched to a stop. 3 men jumped out, shadows from Officer Grant's nightmare. Lily's breath hitched. She had freed him. But now she was trapped with him, and the monsters who left them to die had returned to finish the job. Officer Grant had always trusted his instincts. And that morning, those instincts told him something was wrong long before he could explain why. After rescuing the missing hiker, he loaded Rex and Bolt into the patrol SUV and began driving back toward the station. The forest road was unusually empty. No hikers, no joggers, not even birds. Just a heavy silence that settled on his shoulders like a warning. Rex paced in the back seat, restless. Bolt emitted low, uneasy whines. "Easy, boys," Grant said, though a knot tightened in his stomach. When 2 highly trained K9 South reacted like this, something was off. The ambush came in seconds. A black pickup screeched across the road, blocking the SUV. Grant slammed the brakes, tires skidding against gravel. Before he could reach for the radio, a blinding flashbang exploded against the windshield. The world erupted in light and sound. Grant's ears rang violently. Rex and Bolt barked in panic. Shadows rushed the vehicle, 3 men with covered faces, armed not with guns, but with crowbars and rope. Grant stumbled out of the SUV, dizzy and disoriented, but still ready to defend himself. He lifted his arm to block a strike, but one man swung a metal pipe across his ribs. Pain shot through him. He collapsed to one knee. Bolt lunged forward, sinking his teeth into one attacker's sleeve, but another man kicked him brutally in the stomach. Rex tried to leap through the shattered window, barking wildly, but a blow to the head sent him sprawling. Grant forced himself up, ignoring the blood dripping down his face. "Leave them alone," he shouted, voice raspy. One of the attackers grabbed him from behind, pinning his arms. Another stepped forward and lifted Grant's chin with 2 fingers. Well, the man sneered. Officer Grant, the hero who ruined everything." Recognition hit. These men belonged to the same criminal group he'd arrested months ago, a human trafficking ring he'd helped dismantle. Their leader, now behind bars, had sworn revenge. Grant had stopped their operation, taken their money, saved lives. And this was payback. Rope tightened around his wrists. A rag was stuffed into his mouth. He was dragged along the dirt, helpless. Rex and Bolt struggled desperately, their bodies shaking from blows, but they were overridden, tied, and thrown into the truck like discarded trash. The men drove Grant miles away, out into the dead heat of the open highway. They tied him upright to a pole, laughing as they tightened the knots cruelly. Then they dragged Rex and Bolt onto the asphalt and left them there, unconscious, helpless, and exposed to temperatures that could kill within minutes. One man leaned close to Grant's ear before leaving. "Let the sun finish you." And they drove away, leaving a hero and his loyal K9 South to die alone. The black pickup screeched to a halt, tires spitting dust into the suffocating air. Lily's heart pounded so hard, she thought the men could hear it. The 3 attackers stepped out slowly, scanning the scene with confusion as they noticed the loosened rope around Officer Grant's chest. "What the?" one muttered. Another spotted the broken shard of glass on the ground. Then their eyes landed on Lily, a barefoot 8-year-old girl standing between them and the officer they left to die. Rex let out a faint growl, but his body was too weak to rise. Bolt attempted to push himself up, collapsing instantly. Officer Grant's eyes cracked open just enough to see the danger approaching. "Run," he whispered again, voice barely a breath. But Lily didn't run. She planted her feet, trembling but defiant, and spread her arms protectively in front of the officer and the 2 K9 South. The nearest criminal snickered. "What's this? They got themselves a little guard dog?" He stepped closer, towering over her. Lily's legs shook uncontrollably, but she refused to move. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "Leave them alone." Her words surprised even herself. The man laughed coldly. "Move, kid. This ain't your business." Lily shook her head, tears burning down her cheeks. "They're dying. You tied them up. You hurt them. You can't take them again." The second man stepped forward, irritation replacing amusement. "Let's get rid of her. No witnesses." He grabbed Lily by her arm roughly, cruelly. Lily screamed. The sound jolted Officer Grant, his eyes widening in helpless horror. Rex tried again to stand, managing only an inch before collapsing with a pained whine. Bolt barked weakly, the sound sharp but trembling. Then something shifted. Lily bit the man's hand with every ounce of strength she had. He yelped and pushed her to the ground. She hit the pavement hard, her skin scraping open, but she scrambled back up immediately, stumbling toward the officer again. "You're not taking them," she cried through sobs that the men exchanged frustrated glances. "Fine," the leader growled. "We'll finish what we started. All of them." He reached for his pocket. Lily's breath stopped. Monsters who left them to die were about to do something far worse, and she was the only shield standing between them. The moment the criminal reached into his pocket, Lily froze, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what he was grabbing, but Officer Grant's weak, desperate whisper confirmed her fear. "No." His voice cracked, barely audible but full of warning. The man pulled out a small metal object, something sharp, glinting angrily in the sun. Lily stumbled backward, instinctively shielding Rex and Bolt with her tiny body. The leader smirked. "Should have walked away, kid." But before he could take another step, a sound split the suffocating silence. A growl deep, low, dangerous. Lily's eyes widened. Rex, who moments ago couldn't lift his head, was pushing himself upright. His muscles trembled violently, his legs shaking so hard he nearly collapsed, but he stood. Barely, painfully, but he stood. His eyes locked onto the men, fierce despite the exhaustion burning through him. Bolt followed slower, wobbling dangerously as he forced himself up. His paws slipped on the blistering asphalt, but he planted them again. Growling through his agony, the men faltered. "These dogs should be dead," one hissed. Rex took a step forward. Just one, but it was enough to send a message. "Touch the girl, and you deal with me." Bolt took his place beside Rex, leaning slightly against him for balance. Together, they formed a shaky but unbreakable wall between Lily and danger. The leader scoffed, but there was fear in his eyes. "Fine, let's finish them fast." He lunged. Rex moved first. With a burst of strength no one thought he still had, he launched himself forward, not far, not strong, but enough to clamp his jaws around the attacker's arm. The man screamed as Rex hung on, refusing to let go despite his weakening body. Bolt, fueled by pure instinct and loyalty, crashed into the second attacker's legs, knocking him off balance. The man tumbled, cursing as Bolt snapped at his ankles. Lily stood frozen, eyes wide with awe. They were fighting for her, for Grant, for each other. The third man panicked. "Get these monsters off," he shouted, stumbling backward. And then dash sirens. Distant, but growing. Hope ripped through the air like lightning. Rex and Bolt held their ground. refusing to release their grips until backup arrived. 2 dying dogs had risen through agony and heat. To protect the little girl who protected them, the sirens grew louder faster until they roared across the empty highway like a promise of salvation. The criminals froze, panic flashing in their eyes. Rex still clung to the leader's arm, refusing to surrender even as his legs trembled. Bolt stood over the fallen attacker, growling through his exhaustion. Lily, shaking and bruised, positioned herself beside Officer Grant, gripping his sleeve as if terrified he'd slip away again. The pickup's doors slammed shut as the criminal scrambled back inside, desperate to escape. They tore off down the road just as 2 patrol cars skidded into view, lights flashing. Officers spilled out instantly. "Weapons down! Hands up!" They shouted, guns drawn only to freeze in shock at the sight before them. Officer Grant tied to a pole. 2 half-conscious K9s standing guard. A terrified little girl shielding them all with her tiny frame. And blood, heat, rope, everything wrong. Dear God. One officer whispered. Grant lifted his head weakly. "Help the girl," he rasped. Lily spun around as officers rushed in. "He needs water," she cried. "And the dogs, they're burning. They're so hot, please help them." Her voice cracked with desperation. 2 officers immediately cut Grant free while another scooped Lily into his arms. She squirmed, reaching back. "No, I'm fine. Help them first." Her voice was hoarse, but her determination unshakable. Paramedics arrived seconds later, kneeling beside Rex and Bolt, placing cooling packs beneath their bodies. One paramedic shook his head in disbelief. "These dogs shouldn't be alive," he murmured. "Someone kept them going long enough for us to get here." His eyes drifted to Lily. A female officer knelt beside her, brushing dirt from her face. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" Lily hesitated. Lily, the officer said softly. "You saved them." The words hit her like a wave. She looked at Rex and Bolt, weak, shaking, but alive. For the first time since she found them, her breath eased. Grant, now being lowered carefully onto a stretcher, lifted a trembling hand toward her. "Come here," he whispered. Lily rushed to his side. He placed his bruised hand over hers, voice barely audible. "You saved my family." Lily's eyes filled with tears. As the officers loaded Grant and the K9s south into ambulances. Every one of them knew the same truth. Without that little homeless girl, 3 heroes would have died on that highway. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle hum of air conditioning. Lily sat curled in a chair beside Officer Grant's bed, her knees pulled to her chest, watching over him the same way she had on the scorching highway. Grant stirred awake, blinking slowly. When his eyes focused on the little girl beside him, he managed a weak smile. "Hey kiddo," he rasped. Lily sat up straighter. "Are you okay?" she asked, worry tightening her voice. Grant nodded. "Because of you." "Yeah, I'm okay." 2 doors down, Rex and Bolt were recovering, too hydrated, treated, and safe. Officers rotated shifts watching them like royalty, whispering stories of the tiny hero who stood against monsters. Word spread quickly. In less than 24 hours, Lily's bravery was all over the department. A little girl with nothing had saved 3 lives. Later that afternoon, the police chief entered the room, hat pressed to his chest. His voice was gentle but firm. "Lily, you saved one of our best officers and 2 K9 heroes. That makes you a hero too." Lily looked down, shy and unsure. I didn't want them to die." Grant reached over and took her small hand. "You did more than that," he said. "You gave us a second chance." The chief cleared his throat. "Lily, we looked into your background. You don't have guardians. No home." He paused, softening his tone. "We want to change that." Lily's heart stopped. She held her breath as Grant sat up slightly, wincing but determined. "Lily," he said gently, "if you want, if you'd let me, I'd like to take care of you. You're family now. You saved my life. Let me be part of yours." Her eyes flooded instantly. Her voice trembled. You want me?" Grant smiled, tears sliding down his bruised cheek. "More than anything." Rex and Bolt barked weakly from down the hallway, as if agreeing. 1 week later, Lily walked out of the hospital with Officer Grant at her side, and 2 recovering K9 South trotting proudly beside her. No longer homeless, no longer alone, she had stumbled upon a dying officer and 2 dogs. But instead of tragedy, she found a family, and the entire police force would never forget the little girl who saved them all.